Brent Pry and company end their season absent of a Mayo Bath in Charlotte. Tech men's basketball searches for answers. Meanwhile, Megan Duffy's squad has started to catch heat in a stacked Atlantic Coast Conference as Liz Kitley was recognized inside a roaring Castle Coliseum. We're talking all that and more on this edition of the 3304 Sports Crossover.
Hello and welcome inside the beautiful Moss Art Center studio. He's Cody Wagner. I'm Riley Klaus, and it's our first show of 2025. We're back in Blacksburg, meaning we just had winter break. How was your break, Cody?
It was very good. I got to go back home to Ohio. I know you got the chance to go back to the land of 10,000 lakes. It was good to see family once again.
Yeah, completely agree, but we're right back here in the heart of it in Blacksburg. Well, Cody, over that winter break, there was a lot that happened. So we're going to start on the gridiron for the Hokies, where they made a trip down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and they didn't have what it took to defeat the Minnesota Golden Gophers as they dropped that game 24-10 to close the season with a 6-7 record.
Yeah, certainly a less than ideal end to the 2024 campaign for the Hokies. And to take you through some of the peaks and valleys of the contest, it's our very own Pierce McKnight.
It was not an ideal start for Virginia Tech this past postseason. They lost 16 players to the transfer portal. Some notable names are Malachi Thomas, Braylon Moore, Xavier Chaplin, Mansour Delane, and Jalen Stroman. These 16 punches hurt the Hokies, but not enough to make them back down from a fight. The 7-5 Golden Gophers took on the 6-6 Virginia Tech Hokies in Charlotte, North Carolina for the Duke's Mayo Bowl. First, we start on special teams, where Thomas Williams blocks his defender and forces a muffed punt to start the game. With just over a minute to go in the first, Collins Lee finds Aiden Green for 67 yards, who gets tackled just inside the 5-yard line. Later in the drive, on second and goal, Collins Lee fakes the handoff and runs in for a 3-yard touchdown to put the Hokies on the board. In the second quarter, Minnesota shows some trickery when halfback Darius Taylor throws a 10-yard touchdown to Elijah Spencer. Now wait, is this 2016 or did I just see the dab? With just 5 minutes to go in the first half, Max Brosmer finds Elijah Spencer in the end zone for his second touchdown of the game. Just 4 minutes later, Darius Taylor breaks free for 28 yards for another Minnesota touchdown to make it 21-7. And just before you think the half is over, John Love knocks in a 60-yard field goal to get Virginia Tech back into the ballgame. After a long drive from the Golden Gophers that ended in a field goal, Virginia Tech dove deep into their playbook with this reverse that lasted 47 yards. Now, unfortunately, the Hokies came up empty on this drive. On Virginia Tech's next drive, Pop Watson had too much mayo on his fingers and lost the football. After the refs finished digging through the pile, Virginia Tech luckily recovered. With the Hokies in desperation, Pop Watson heaves a pass towards the end zone that gets intercepted. And that will be all she wrote for this matchup, but what kind of monster would I be if I didn't end with a Mayo Bath? And nothing beats this guy's reaction.
Thanks, Pierce. A big storyline in that bowl game, Riley, was the players opting out for Virginia Tech. And 6 of those were guys hopping into the transfer portal. With that, the Hokies have brought in a number of players through the portal themselves. Brent Pry has been able to attract top talent in his short time with Tech and continues to be able to do so.
Yeah, Cody, it seems like despite the cold weather throughout the country, every team is anxious to go fishing in the transfer portal. Has Virginia Tech reeled in any big fish to shore? For more on what's been caught on the Hokies line, let's turn to Thomas Howlett.
After a disappointing conclusion to the 2024-2025 season, Virginia Tech has hit the transfer portal hard, looking to add several key additions for next year's make-or-break season. So far, the Hokies have lost many players to the portal. However, they have hauled in 19 transfers of their own. Perhaps the most impactful transfers have come in the trenches. After a change at offensive line coach, head honcho Brent Pry brought in Matt Moore from West Virginia. Since becoming a coach at Virginia Tech, Moore has brought in 3 former Mountaineers to help bolster the line for next season. Lucas Austin, Thomas Remack, and Kyle Altuner look to be long-term additions to the Hokie program. Remack will definitely have a big role next season as he started all 12 of the Mountaineers games this past campaign. Another position group that was heavily targeted in the portal was the running back room. With Bashaw Tootin graduating and Malachi Thomas transferring to Purdue, the race for RB1 is wide open. And with this wide open race, Pry and his coaching staff have brought in 4 transfers to compete for the starting job. Terrion Stewart from Bowling Green, Cameron Selden from Tennessee, Braden Bennett from Coastal Carolina, and Marcellus Hawkins from Central Missouri State are all powerful runners and look to bring their own unique skill sets to this Virginia Tech offense. Stewart rushed for 898 yards on 166 carries and managed to find the end zone 6 times. One of these touchdowns came on this 73-yard run from the first-team All-MAC tailback. Bennett, on the other hand, rushed for only 781 yards on 134 carries, although he did put up an astounding 11 rushing touchdowns on the year. While Bennett's rushing numbers might not jump off the page, he did manage to haul in 25 receptions and 188 receiving yards, along with 2 touchdowns, one of those being this 37-yard screen pass to the house. At the moment, the Hokies are still without a defensive coordinator. However, that has not stopped Virginia Tech from bringing in several impact players on the defense. A huge hole in this side of the ball coming into the offseason was the secondary, after losing Mansour Delane, Dorian Strong, Mose Phillips, and Jalen Stroman. So far, Coach Pry has brought in 6 players in the secondary with 4 safeties, Isaiah Cash, Sherrod Coville Jr., Christian Ellis, and Tyson Flowers, along with 2 corners, Joseph Reddish and Isaiah Brown Murray. Cash, the transfer from Sam Houston State, posted 67 total tackles and 2 interceptions, along with a half sack. Ellis, the transfer from New Mexico, had 99 total tackles, an interception, and 3.5 tackles for loss. In his sophomore campaign, transfer Brown Murray from East Carolina collected 42 total tackles, an interception, a forced fumble, and fumble recovery. Now, there are other transfer players as well, but these are the positions that have largely been affected by the incoming class. While maybe this group doesn't jump off the page, Coach Pry undoubtedly has a plan for each of them that will help bring Virginia Tech back into ACC contention.
Thanks, Thomas, for that transfer portal recap. Well, it's time to shift gears and talk women's hoops in Blacksburg. In the first year of the Megan Duffy era, the Hokies have stayed right in the mix in ACC play, and Coach Duffy has brought her upbeat tempo to Castle Coliseum and beyond. That showed no signs of stopping Thursday night in Pittsburgh, PA, so let's recap the match in the Steel City. Midway through the first quarter, starts off with some ball movement from the Hokies. They find Lonnie White, who has the net in sight, and she gets the triple to go. Tight game late in the first. Pass over to White, who this time will find Eck near the same spot, who lets it go from 3, and it's another triple for the Hokies.
Eck was great all night.
That indeed she was. On the other end, defensively from the Hokies, making a stand against the Panthers as the transition to Rose Misha will go up and through as Virginia Tech gets ahead. In the second quarter, nearing halftime, Panthers strike back as underneath the basket. A tough bucket to go from Pitt as Washington gets it in. Another 3 from Eck. You talked about it. She was on fire from behind the arc last night. In the second half, Wenzel finding some space from 3. It's a splash as the leading scorer for the Hokies in this game found it from behind the arc as well. In the second half, Wenzel this time finds Baker on the dish, and then Baker was cooking from 3 as it just would not go outside of the net for the Hokies all night. But on the other end, a quick answer from Washington again from Pitt to keep it within 20, but it was Hokies pretty much the whole night, Cody, as Virginia Tech won 84-57 in the end. And when we really look at this team, there's a lot of new members, but it's really the returners who have taken a huge step up in 2024 to 2025.
Yeah, they made a huge impact for this team, right? Last year, Matilda Eck was kind of the star of the show. It's been a lot of Rose Misha and Carly Wenzel so far this season. You, of course, got to throw Karis Baker in there as well. Her role has changed a lot for this Tech team. And for the newcomers, it's Lonnie White, who's been very impressive, averaging over 10 points a game. And it's kind of shocking when you look at it to see how big of a piece that these returners have been, because last year they weren't necessarily the biggest names, so you might not have known much about them, but they've really stepped into the limelight, especially including those names I just mentioned.
Yeah, and their next test will be a tough one against an NC State Wolfpack team who over the last decade or so has been a powerhouse in the ACC.
Yeah, they've struggled comparatively to past seasons this season, but they're always a very well-coached team. Wes Moore knows exactly what he's doing with that roster, and I think they'll start to figure it out, and it's going to be a good test for Megan Duffy's squad to see what they can do against a strong NC State team. Well, last Saturday was a special afternoon inside Castle Coliseum with the Tech women's team taking down a strong Louisville squad, snapping a 7-game winning streak for the Cards. Castle was absolutely packed, and for good reason. Tech legend Elizabeth Kitley's number was retired and will hang in the rafters forever. On site at Castle Coliseum is Landon Weaver, who will take you through an unforgettable day in Virginia Tech athletics history.
Last Saturday, Virginia Tech women's basketball took on the high-flying Louisville Cardinals in an ACC matchup that had very high implications. But that wasn't the only storyline from last Saturday's action. Liz Kitley saw her 33 be raised in the rafters and etched into Virginia Tech women's basketball history forever.
So many historic names here in Castle Coliseum, and now Liz Kitley is one of them. She joins Renee Dennis as the second Hokies women's basketball player to have her jersey retired. The list of Liz Kitley's accolades runs so deep that I can only include a few here in this short clip. She was a 3-time ACC Player of the Year, a 4-time All-ACC First Team member. She also was part of the 2022-23 Virginia Tech squad that won the team's first ever ACC championship. She was also part of Virginia Tech's first ever Final Four in all sports across the board. Last year, she was drafted by the Las Vegas Aces in the second round with the 24th pick to play alongside some WNBA greats A'ja Wilson and Kelsey Plum. Everybody that sat here in Castle Coliseum will tell you that she will be able to replicate her style of play and her accolades on the floor in the WNBA. Only time will tell, but I think she will be able to too.
The halftime festivities weren't all just about Liz Kitley. It was about how revered she was across both college basketball and basketball in general. Georgia Amore, Kelsey Plum, A'ja Wilson all showed love to her and showed that she's synonymous with Virginia Tech basketball history for years to come.
Great stuff, Landon. Let's shift to Tech men's basketball, who made the trip down to Atlanta on Wednesday. And here's Georgia Tech. They lead at 6-2 early. Duncan Powell from the right wing nails this three. He was unbelievable all night for the Yellow Jackets. And Elaine Recksteiner finds Tyler Johnson in the corner. More from him to come.
Yeah, he had a big night.
Young, straight away for three. Money, he's come into his own as the season has gone along, but the Hokies throw this one away. Great transition offense by Georgia Tech. Good ball movement, and they put it in to go up 3.
You can't have that turnover.
In the corner, once again, Johnson said you see more of him. He had a great night for Tech, and watch out. Toby Lawal throws it down over a defender.
He's incredible athletically.
No doubt about it. And Dongo finds Powell in the near corner, and he knocks down another triple. Second half, it's Powell once again in transition. The layup off the glass and good. Powell was unstoppable. Rodney Brown Jr., he's been a new welcome addition to this Tech team. And underneath, once again, it's Ndongo with the and one. Count the bucket. Javian McCollum, he gets the bucket and the foul. And then once again, it is Duncan Powell backing in a defender, gets the left-handed finish off the glass. Tech within 2 now late in the game, but the Yellow Jackets take it away, and it's Ndongo on the other end with the bucket. Javian McCollum able to make a big finish to seal the deal. 71-64 the final in Atlanta. Georgia Tech wins it over the Hokies. And Riley, it's really been turnovers for Virginia Tech that's been the problem.
Yeah, we saw it throughout that highlight video. I mean, Mike Young, that is something that he's preached for a long time at every stop he's been. And you just can't win basketball games when you're just giving the ball away to the other team. And I think that's been an issue for the Hokies all year long. They're starting at times to look okay, but then when you have those deadly turnovers, that's going to really cost you in the long run.
No doubt about it. And Virginia Tech will take on a top 4 team in the ACC in Clemson this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a big test for Virginia Tech. We've seen them like early on. Obviously, they dropped some of those games like at Jacksonville that you're thinking, okay, maybe we're going this direction. But then they're competitive in ACC play, so maybe they play up to the level of competition of a Clemson. It's going to be interesting to see because Clemson is right up there. But if we're being a national scale, clearly the ACC as a whole is behind par in the early going. As below Duke, there's a massive drop-off. There's almost nobody in the top 25 on a regular basis. So can the ACC get itself out of the rough? Or will the conference be stuck in the sand trap come Selection Sunday? For more on the ACC's early struggles on the hardwood, we'll send it to Sam Mostow.
For the longest time, when you thought of the ACC, you thought of men's basketball. You thought of Christian Laettner and Ralph Sampson. You thought of Dean Smith, Jimmy V, and Coach K. You think of continued hoops dominance spanning decades, full of blue bloods and certain NCAA tournament teams. But in 2025, that is more of a dream than a reality. Today, only 2 ACC teams are in the AP Top 25. Duke is ranked second, and Louisville snuck in at number 25. Only 5 teams are in the top 50 of Ken Pomeroy's rankings: Duke, Louisville, Clemson, Pitt, and North Carolina. Those 5, plus one other, SMU, are the only ones in the Net's top 50. The NCAA Tournament Selection Committee has placed 5 ACC teams in its end-of-season tournament in each of the last 4 years. Of all the teams to qualify in that span, the average in both the Ken Pom and the net rankings is around 31, as shown in the graph here. If we assume that is the threshold to make the tournament, the conference would gain just 3 bids on Selection Sunday, its fewest since 2000. There's plenty of basketball left to be played, and March is March. Anything can happen. But the start of the season has been jarring for the historically dominant men's basketball conference, and time is dwindling down for the ACC to reverse its struggles. Back to you.
All right, it's time for one last fun segment on the 3304 Sports Crossover. It's time for Swish or Miss. We'll take a look at some hot takes in the college basketball world and decide if they're a swish or a miss.
Well, here's the first one we got for you. Cooper Flagg is the best player in the country. Swish or miss?
I think he's been incredible as a freshman. I know that it's early and that he's still developing as a player, but right now I think he could be the most impactful player in basketball. I think this is a swish. I do want to give a shout out to Janai Broom of Auburn. He's been incredible as well, but I think this is a swish. I still think Cooper Flagg is so impactful already as a freshman.
Yeah, no doubt. He's been incredible, and he will go on to be the #1 pick most likely, and is, of course, the top prospect, and for good reason. But for me, this is a miss personally. Maxime Renaud out at Stanford, he's been unbelievable. Yes, he spent a lot of time out there at Stanford. He's a senior, Flagg's a freshman, so you kind of aren't comparing apples to apples, but to me, he's the best player in the country right now.
Yeah, I think that could be fair to say he's been incredible. But let's shift it to the women's side of basketball, where we're going to talk about Notre Dame women's basketball will make the national championship, Cody.
To me, this is a swish. They've been unbelievable, right? They've got Hannah Hidalgo, they've got Maddie Westbeld, they've got Sonia Citron, who's as consistent as they get, and then they add transfers, and they add Olivia Miles back into the mix, who was injured in the tournament last year. So they're going to be a dangerous team, Riley.
Yeah, I completely agree. Last year, they picked up a lot of momentum towards the end of the season, won the ACC Women's Tournament. You mentioned they bring everybody back, so you keep what you had, as well as bringing in new players. They're even further. I think they go from just an ACC title team to they could win the whole thing. And Blacksburg's going to get a taste of it next week. They're coming down here to play against Virginia Tech, so that will be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting one, no doubt, in Blacksburg. And the final take we've got for you is 6 or more ACC men's teams will make March Madness, Riley.
I think this is a great number to put at it, right? Because we saw 5 last year. 6 is on the border. I think that we see the reverse of the college football playoff this time. The SMU Mustangs are left out of the dance. But I like this line, if you will, because we saw 5 last year. They have 5 right now who are in, if you go by, for example, the Ken Pom ratings. They have 5 in the top 40 that you're feeling pretty comfortable. They could get another, but I think the magical number's 5. I don't think they get any further, so I'm going to go with a miss on that one.
Yeah, I'm going with a miss as well. I think there's a chance, as unfortunate as it may seem, that there's only 4 teams from the ACC that get in, because last year, if you look at it, there were only going to be 4 teams until NC State ended up winning the tournament. Of course, they go on the legendary Final Four run, but a team like NC State, they weren't getting in if they don't win the ACC tournament. So I think there's a chance you see 4, probably most likely 5 come out of the ACC. I don't think they get to that magical number 6.
Yeah, but you never know. Maybe they get 7 just with the way college sports
Who
is.
knows?
So that'll do it for this week's 3304 Sports Crossover. For our reporters, Pierce McKnight, Thomas Howlett, Landon Weaver, Sam Mostow, and all of our incredible crew behind the scenes, we want to say thank you for watching this week's episode. Make sure to subscribe to the 3304 Sports YouTube channel down below and follow us on social media at 3304 Sports for more content. We'll see you next week.